Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm going to call the meeting to order on July 25th at 2023 at 6 p.m. This is a regular council meeting. Roll call, Rachel.
Councilmember Larson,
Yes.
Councilmember White,
Present.
Councilmember Dan Hahn,
Present.
Council President Melinda Cox,
Present.
Councilmember Julia Stubble,
Present.
Councilmember Josh Hahn,
Present.
Mayor Monty Richardson.
Present.
You have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Need a motion approval of the agenda.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Larson, second by Councilman Stubble to approve the agenda as presented. Call for the question, Councilman Hahn.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. First on our agenda is communication from the floor. When you come up, please approach the microphone, state your full name for the recording. And comments electronically are recorded and comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment?
A question?
Yes.
So are folks able to make public comment on topics for the work session?
They can make them right now.
Okay, they can. I'm sorry, I gave incorrect information. So if folks want to talk about what's happening on the work session, they can come
Yeah,
forward.
so
Thank
when we
you.
Get the work session, that's our time. Right here, please. Do we have the clock set up? Somebody got the times. You have to push the little red guy button there. Go ahead.
Is that good?
Yep.
Good afternoon, everybody. How's it going? My name is Tim Kramer and I live here in Lander. And I think the work session was to discuss, the discussion was about camping in City Park and whether there was going to be formed some sort of payment for camping in City Park. I know for years it's been a free camping in City Park. And I guess myself as a citizen, I support trying to bring together some sort of payment schedule or payment kind of system for both campers and people in RVs staying in City Park. One of the concerns I have is with the increased use over the years and over the summer is how's the upkeep going to continue and paying for the upkeep of the infrastructure, the restrooms, the trash. And that's a concern because in tighter budgets in our city, we have to think about how are we going to offset some of those costs. We've decided as a state also in Wyoming that with decreases in oil and gas revenue, the shift towards recreation, towards tourism, our city needs to recognize that and some sort of fee or payment to stay in our city park is a way for us to help offset some of the wear and tear to our infrastructure. I don't think it has to be insane, but I mean, we're all used in Wyoming paying for our state parks, our state infrastructure. I can't go up Stinks Canyon and camp in the state park for free or the Forest Service for free up Stinks Canyon is another example. There is one area you can, but developed ones with restrooms and water, you do pay for. I think it was always been a neat thing. And there's a lot of sentiment regarding it being something like that Lander has free camping in City Park. But we also got to think about how long ago they established that. Well, it's 2023. The amount of individuals using the city park for camping probably has increased exponentially from when they first established, or how long it's been around for free camping in City Park. So I think it's just something that I support that as a citizen. Obviously, it has to be at a rate that people will accept. I did read in the newspaper, people saying, well, we're just going to go camp on public land. Well, there's a convenience for staying in City Park if you're coming. So that's something you've got to think about. People would rather stay in City Park, even for a nominal fee, than to drive up the Loop Road.
Time's up.
End of statement for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Thank you for letting me speak. Hello to all future council members, chief and current council members. My name is Christian Kirschbaum and I sent an email to all of you. Hopefully you all got it. And I simply wanted to come put a voice with what you could read and see a face that goes with it. One of the things that I think is important is after you've read the email, if you have questions, please call me, but there is something to be said about the sentiment that has to do with City Park. I made some suggestions on both sides and did bring some sentiment into it. Again, I knew I wouldn't be able to tell everything in 3 minutes. That's why I sent the email. And so I'll cut this short and say thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody on Zoom? Okay. We'll move on. All right. A new business action item. Approval of resolution 1301 exempting the Pioneer Museum from the open container provision of City Ordinance 2-2-12. Need all sets of eyes on this stuff. I can't see out that way. Rochelle, you want to talk about this?
This request is for an open container permit at the Pioneer Museum. It's my understanding is now the Pioneer Museum, no longer the Museum of the American West, since the transfer of the property mostly to Fremont County. The request came in last Friday late, and I asked her about the open container. That she said the information she's receiving from the museum, even though staff has discussed this with the head of the museum, was that there is not an open container requirement. I consulted with our city attorney, Mr. Adam Phillips. Our reading and interpretation of our code is that anytime someone is drinking alcohol, not in a restaurant or a bar and not in our city park or recreational facilities, and this is not affiliated with the city in any shape or form now that we no longer have our quasi partnership with them. And they're in the public lands, which owned by Fremont County, which it is. I double checked the deed, and Fremont County owns the underlying real property and structures thereon. Public land is also defined in our code to include any private residence that the public is allowed to come into, not residents. I misspoke, business that the public is allowed to come in. So with that being said, I reached out to the Cedar Bar. She was very accommodating, very nice. She came in and filled out the application, and I told her that we would try and get it on for tonight because her event is August 5th and it's a wedding at the museum. Chief Peters has signed off on it as well.
There.
Thank
So Rochelle, just to clarify my understanding, this is the first time we've seen this type of resolution for this site, which there's plenty of weddings at the site, but this is because of the transfer. Now it's county land. Previously, we weren't granting or needing to grant these open container permits and allowances.
Well, we have had them in the past, but we were calling it Museum of the American West still. So we've seen a couple of them in the last 6 months, but you would have seen them titled open container exception for property in the Museum of the American West. Brewfest, for example, received an open container permit. They applied for it and received one as well. Why we weren't doing them prior to that, I really couldn't speak to that issue. I'm not sure.
So it's a shift on our side that is prompting that now we're seeking, like all weddings will now need to be on that site, they're serving alcohol will need to.
If the alcohol is staying in the livery stable, similar to a business after hours event at a accounting firm on Main Street, for example, then they don't need an open container permit. But if the alcohol is out on the grounds in the open air, in the open, then they need an open container permit, is our interpretation. Am I misspeaking?
No, I mean, she is 100% correct. There are a list of exceptions to that.
Mhm.
Problem is they're pretty fine tuned. So if the
And-
council wants to explore changing that at any time, you certainly can.
Mhm.
But the exceptions are a restaurant, like Rochelle had listed off. So this didn't fit any of those exceptions. That's why we're bringing it here today.
Places that already have a state of Wyoming liquor license, a resort license, bar and grill license, things of that nature are covered already.
So, Mr. Mayor, just if you may, so it seems like one of the issues to solve then, which it sounds like you're attempting to do, is clear communication with the museum site about when they speak with a renter, that they are clearly saying, here is the process you need to follow, you need to come to the city.
Correct. And I know that Anne even has had that conversation with Scott Getz, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the employee that is also helps coordinate functions there, but we have information that there may be other individuals there saying that you don't need one, and my intention is to reach out to Mr. Getz and let him know that our interpretation is that they do, and that if they have some employees or volunteers that believe to the contrary, they can call us, but they should be telling people that they need to get
Great.
one.
Thank you.
Any questions? Can I get a
Mr. Mayor?
motion to approve resolution 1301?
Sorry, are we gonna approve and then discuss, or
We can have
Okay.
more discussion.
that's Robert's? There's many. Move to approve resolution 1301.
Get a second.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman White. A second by Councilman Hahn, Jay Hahn. To approve resolution 1301. Seeing you having a question?
That's a great, yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor. So typically when folks have asked for an open container permit, we've had an end time of 10 PM. And this is midnight. And I realize they are, we strive to have consistency. And then I also realize this is a bit different in that I don't think it's an open, it's a confined party. It's not an open invite list in quite the same space. But my consistent side says it'd be better to err on the side of being consistent, and open container should go until 10. Otherwise, I fear we open up Pandora's box of what end time a private party wants to have.
There's some wisdom there.
Yeah. Mr. Attorney. You're online. What's your opinion?
Oh, I agree. There needs to be consistency, and that has generally been the opinion of this council and prior councils, that it would go till 10 o'clock. They always put on their application till midnight.
Midnight.
Generally, council has voted with the contingency that it be end at 10.
So Adam, I think I would need to make a motion to amend this to have a 10 PM deadline,
Correct.
and then we do a vote to see if
You'd have
that
to vote on
passes or
the
not.
amendment.
Right.
Then you'd have to vote.
Okay.
On the
So,
actual.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make an amendment that this is changed from 4 PM to 10 PM on August 5th.
Okay, got a second.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman White, a second by Councilman Larson to change the ending time to 10 PM. Call for the question, Councilman Larson.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No,
No.
No. Well. probably missed it, but yeah, just. So at this point in time. You guys always like to throw it back on me, but I'm gonna, since this is a different location, different type, and there's been so much confusion with this one, I'm gonna vote no also. It will. Amendment fails. We'll vote on the original. Have a motion and a second. Gonna call for the question. Councilman Hahn,
Yes.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
Yes.
No.
yes. Motion is approved. So. Moving on, there is no other business come for the council for the regular council meeting. I need a motion to adjourn.
That's adjourned.
You know, a second.
Second.
The motion by Councilman Larson, second by Councilman White. Call for the question, Councilman Hahn.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. Meeting's adjourned. We're gonna move on to a work session. And we're gonna take and just go right into the work session. Mayor and council updates. So Councilman Larson,
Mayor, I don't have anything at this time. Thank you.
okay, Councilman White.
Thank you, Mayor. A few things. Once again, great weekend of events around town. I was in attendance at the city park events Friday and Saturday, which was wonderful. Folks locally, folks from out of town, really lovely time. And a benefit also, besides the great music, was a great chance to talk to Lander residents about their concerns, and a lot of folks like wanting to bend my ear, which is great. I do now have the numbers for the June employments. Last time I could only speak that it was June was a really strong month. It was our third highest since 2002. The total employments were 1,509, just shy of the record in 2008, which was 1,541. So we're pretty psyched about that with the limited flight ability we have. Again, it underscores that it is a service that folks indeed use. We're just shy of 30% over our year-over-year employments to date. Again, that was through June. And so the year-to-date by the end of June was 7,282 employments, which again is overall higher than 2002, which was pretty awesome. Lastly, a lot of folks are having questions about economic development tax that benefit to Lander and to, what's happening in Riverton and to the county in general. Kevin Krashisnik is from, he's involved in the Forward Fremont County PAC and the economic development entities in Riverton. He's speaking at Lander Rotary tomorrow at noon. Folks want to be my guest, get in touch with me. I'll let you know more details about it. $10 for lunch and conversation and some education. And other than that, that is it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hahn.
Mayor,
Yes,
can
Councilman.
I just comment on a comment that Missy made? It's fun to go to Denver and go to the gate to go to Riverton, and you're always going to find somebody you know.
That's true.
And it's just fun to find somebody that you're familiar with down there in Denver.
Yep. Councilman Hahn.
I just have one thing. The Lander Fire Department is 120 years old this
Wow.
year. 120.
That's good.
So that's all I have.
Happy
Mayor.
birthday.
Yeah.
Founding member, Dan? Founding member?
Yeah.
Okay, Councilman Cox.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
I just have a couple of things. Thank you all, and I apologize for not being there in person. My mom had surgery here in Colorado, so I'm here taking care of her. and everything went well. So that was nice. But LEDA, Lander Economic Development Association, is going to be presenting to us on the 8th. They will have a full packet full of information. So they were going to come tonight and do some explanations and some potential recommendations of those, but it's not going to happen until August 8th. So just be aware that they're working diligently on making a recommendation for us for that sales tax, etc. So that is on its way. And certainly if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Eric, Sarah. They're more than available via email. Also, just to follow up with the Fremont County School District number 1, I think that, they're diligently working on a potential drug testing policy. And while that may seem not relevant to our city as a function or as a governing board, I do want to start discussing some policy, or maybe not even policy, but maybe procedurally what we want to do and what we accept within our city by way of legal drug sales, if you will, in the city limits. There's been a considerable amount of effort across the nation to reduce underage consumption of drugs and alcohol. And we currently have 2 places that I know of, that are advertising selling of those drugs. Now, while underage folks can't legally purchase those, I do know that happens. And I'm sure the chief also knows that. And I think that there needs to be some form of discussion from the city standpoint on what we're going to allow. And I also know that the city of Riverton is in the discussion phase of this, and that's how it pertains to THC 8, Delta 10, and Kratom. And so anyway, just want to put a bug in everybody's ear that we need to really be looking at this. Lander has always been a unique place because we've felt like these problems don't really apply to us as frequently as other places. And unfortunately, it really has hit home. And we, as a body, I think can come up with some solutions to help not only support the school district, whatever their decision is, but also really formulating a plan so we can reduce access in the community. And other than that, I think that's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Stuhl.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I have, I think I have 3 topics today, if I'm counting correctly. So I attended the Conservation District meeting in mid-July, and we continued discussions on how we problem solve with the city, with DEQ, and with the Conservation District around some of those hotspots we're seeing of E. coli in the river. And so that discussion continues, and Lance is doing great work talking with DEQ about their role in that too. Regine and I also attended, this is related, I guess, in my mind, to the Conservation District. Although actually it's more to do with the Energy and Environment Task Force. Now I think about it, we attended a workshop that was put together by some of those volunteers around talking about the climate hazards that Lander might face in the future. We focused on flooding, no surprise. And some scientists came up from various universities to talk about their projections for what climate changes changing climate will do in Lander and how that'll affect flooding. And we talked through what kind of risks we'd see. And I think they'll be putting together a variety of materials and bringing that into more of a public discussion in the fall. So stay tuned for that. But it was a nice, really well-attended workshop of the various stakeholders and agencies and governments who need to be part of those discussions of those ongoing hazards we might face. Congratulations to the Climbers Fest. Speaking of birthdays, 30 years, not 120 like the fire department, but maybe they'll get there. But 30 years of the International Climbers Fest in town, it really was a triumph. The director wrote to me that they had a record-breaking number of tickets, a remarkable amount of revenue brought in for their for what they do in town and what they donate and how they spend those monies in town. Really, it's an incredible amount of people in town too, over 1,000, we think, come to town for that event. So the economic boon is just remarkable. And it really helps define the character of town as well. Great media coverage also about that founding event and the 30 years since. Lastly, Mayor, I had some discussion with Ann Even about requests we've had from a couple of citizens that the council make a statement. And I wanted to run through the process and Adam, look for your advice on what that would look like, because in my view, statements from the city of Lander come from the mayor's office. And that's the most appropriate place for that to come from. If the council were ever to consider making a statement, we would need to craft that in a public meeting and take a vote on it, which would be, I think, something that only rises to, there would have to be a high bar, I think, for us to take action on that. Otherwise, I think it's most appropriate that statements come from the mayor's office. And I think Ann spoke with you about that, right, Mr. Mayor?
Mhm.
Yep. So that felt like good resolution to me. And I think that Ann mentioned on when statements are sent to the press or press releases come out, it'll be made clear that that is an action taken by mayor's office, not by the council itself. So just wanted to bring that up. And that's all my 3 things. Thanks, Mayor.
And I'll sit down with the Adam talk more.
Not right now. I don't think it's appropriate for this meeting, so.
Councilman Hahn?
Nope, just spoke to the public, a lot of people in favor of coming up with a charge for the park. That's all I got.
Thank you. Just real quick, we had a great weekend this weekend. VFW and involved in this pig roast, and it's about mental health and suicide prevention. Since Fremont County is the highest suicide rates in the state of Wyoming, and Wyoming is the highest per capita in the nation for suicide. So this started about 3 years ago. It's been a good event and hope to continue it. We got the Army National Guard involved. They're wanting to keep this running too. And if we help 1 or 2 people, this has done a good thing for us, because can't put a price on life. So like I said, it was a good thing, a lot of good communication. I had, it's kind of funny, had a little girl from China come up, and they told her I was the mayor, and she asked if she could have a picture, because in China, you don't talk to the dignitaries. You're not able to touch them. You're not able to shake hands. And it was a good thing. She was just tickle pink. She got to put her arm around the mayor and have a picture taken with him. So, but like I said, we can't do it do this without total community cooperation, and it was totally community cooperation. So thank the VFW, Janet Bob sitting out there. They did a great job. I put them to work hard. So, but thank you guys, and thank the Army National Guard and all the military people that were there too. And just everybody that was there, Donna Groom-Smith with the Department of Health, and the advocates that were all there. We had about 19 booths that were there, handing out information on suicide prevention and mental health. So it was a great turnout this year, and I figure we served right around 3,000 people this year. And before, it was a big line. This year, it was just a steady stream of people coming in. So it's a good thing. I want to thank Senator Salazar. He was there passing out and fixing lunch for people, and Mayor Hancock from Riverton and Mayor Oler from Hudson also were there. So it's a good thing, and they all want to come back next year and help keep this program going. So it was a good thing. So I wanted to just put those thanks out there. And then we'll move on to staff reports. Chief?
Okay. Just a couple things, curfew, I'll get to curfew here in a second, but our calls are up, but I don't know if I explained it before, we always spike in July. So for the year, we're still on our normal level. We have had a few calls around, I'm sure probably have got back to you. We had a few burglaries in the last week, but we've solved those. So every major crime we've had, we have solved. So there's nothing out there outstanding. Curfew, in case you get wind of it, we've already cracked down starting last week on curfew. We were having a lot of problems with our young, spry kids running the neighborhoods at 2 o'clock in the morning. And there was also a group out there that was up to no good around the whole east side of town. I believe that's been broken up. That group has, because it's quieted down since we've plucked a few of them out for some of their actions. The only other thing I have is a couple things. We do have we got a new machine, which I'll, as soon as we roll it out, I'll actually come in and show it to you here at one of the workshops. Everybody knows what a PBT is for the most part, a portable breath test. So like if you get stopped for a DUI, we have a machine that you blow in and it gives you your alcohol level. Well, technology is cresting, and in the West, at least in Wyoming, it's always been a little bit behind. They came out with a oral fluid where you swab the mouth, and now there's a PBT for drugs. So when it comes to drug driving, about 30% of our DUIs are drug driving. So this is actually a great tool, and we're pretty much, we're the first ones in Wyoming that are actually going to roll this out and see how it goes. So it's a neat thing. And then the other thing is we're right now it's on order, I'm waiting to get it. The old antiquated way of we take a lot of drugs, we seize a lot of drugs, and for the most part in Lander, but we always have to test it in like a 1970s way. And with today's drugs, they're very dangerous. No offense. No offense, but it's antiquated. What it is we take drugs and there's these things called NIC kits. So it's a little vial. We have to open it up, and we have to open up the package of whatever drugs we have, and then we have to take a sample and put it into there. Well, that sounds fine and dandy, but with the days of fentanyl out there, that when you get it airborne, it can run the risk of killing you. It's become a liability when it comes to testing drugs. What this TrueNarc is actually a scanner. So then from now on, when we get it in, our folks won't have to open up any baggies again. So literally you take it as it's sealed up, you stick it under the scanner, and it has the ability to scan it and tell you exactly what's in it. So it'll tell you, methamphetamines cut with baking soda. It'll tell you every agent in this thing. And then from our standpoint, from, Lander and from the police department, we don't ever run the risk of putting one of our officers in risk because we're using an antiquated system. So that's on order, hopefully, with today's supply chain. I'm hoping to get it here in the next month, but you never know when it comes to that part of it. And then the only other thing to throw out, 14 employees took the opportunity with the golf membership as of right now. So it's a little less than what we thought. We thought there'd be 20, but there's 14 as of this moment.
Any questions for Chief?
Mayor, I would just, I'm sure everybody in the room is really impressed that you're modernizing our drug testing. So thank you. That sounds pretty awesome. Do you mind clarifying, are we still waiting on the county coroner to make a determination with the deceased person who was found a couple weeks ago now?
Yes, he's been identified. It's the coroner that needs to make the press release.
Thank you.
And then, okay, we'll move on.
Yeah.
Lance?
Actually, just one
Oh,
more
yeah,
thing.
one
We've had a couple weird calls here lately. One, we had a guy with a Tesla decide he was going to pull into the lion shelter and plug in because he figured the city should give him free electricity. So that's just out there. But the one thing that in the future that's going to come up that we're going to have to probably address is Lander is great when it comes to new technology. Our folks are out there. We're kind of above the edge of a lot of communities in Lander. So electric bicycles are in statute, but electric motorcycles are not in statute. So I'll dig into that and eventually it'll come back to you, but there's kind of a loophole in the law right now. And if you haven't noticed, we had a couple kids out there on these electric motorcycles, which are electric dirt bikes. And the thing is that you get a 15-year-old on there. Well, technically by statute, it's not a motor vehicle. It doesn't fall under the CCs for a motorcycle. It doesn't fall under the definition for an e-bike because an e-bike by statute has to have pedals. So we're kind of in a gray area. And on top of that, that little thing went 54 miles an hour, I think was what we clocked them at, that one kid. So in the future, as soon as we get that lined out, we might end up having to try to get a definition, whether it's from the city, because it's not in statute or not. Still researching that.
Mr. Mayor.
Is that it?
Oh.
Councilman White.
Thank you for that, Chief. Councilman Larson says he wants one. But along those lines, I also have concerns about, there's electric skateboards that can go 25 miles an hour. And, so a kid well below the driving age and the, determined judgment to move at speed can be on a device that goes as fast as the cars in Lander, scooters and whatnot. And that's, I cringe at the thought if it's being used well, great, I don't want to intervene. And I can see that being also a recipe for disaster. A 9-year-old kid zipping down a street 25 miles an hour or hopping on a sidewalk and running someone over at high speed. I don't know how we go about doing that, but if you're starting to look into some of those things, those might also bear looking into, like, how do we manage that appropriately? Thank you.
Is that it? Okay, Lance?
Yes, Mayor and Council, I'll be talking a little bit about the items on the agenda, so I'm happy to answer any questions. Don't have really comment, other than Missy, we're slowing them down with potholes right now. Lots of speed bumps, just teasing, but happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Lance? Okay, since we're gonna move on. Regine?
Thank you, Mayor. You have an invitation sample in front of you as council. August 9th will be our next open house. This is what we've done in this will be the third time that we've replaced a town hall meeting with just an open house where people come in. This time it will be here in the courtroom instead of the community center. But we have 4 agency guests, and then we'll have staff around to answer questions on what the city is doing. So I want to make sure that word gets out. We have a lot of press releases and a lot of social media going out about that. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
I do not have anything tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Adam,
I don't have anything either. Thank you.
that's quick. Rochelle?
I wanted just to let you know that on August 8th, you will also see 2 resolutions again for open containers. They're not necessarily at the museum property, but it seems to be the season. I'm hoping everyone saw my email about the public officer training. If you don't know, that was enacted about a year-ish ago. They started talking about it, and the training will be required for all public officers. And the definition of public officer is fairly broad. It can include boards if they make recommendations about public funds or involved with public funds and things of that nature. So I did call the state auditor today and spoke with him or someone from his staff. Board of Adjustments and Planning don't fall under that definition. They really don't make any recommendations about spending money, but I have been in contact with Lift and Lita. I know that at WAM, some of you were able to go and get that certification, so thank you. I will have to take the class. I do not have a financial related degree. I chose to go to law school, so a lot with fun. So April 23rd, we will have a place to view. Oh yeah, August. No. I did say April. Yeah, August 23rd. Thank you. Virtual option. I know some of you said you're going to take advantage of that, but I know Regine is planning a place where people can view it here as well. And so if you can join us, please do.
How many hours is that?
I believe it's all day.
It's a full day.
The good thing about joining the virtual class, if you're able to do that, is that it's a day shorter than the WAM presentation, which is 2 days the minimum. So if you miss this one, there are other opportunities to receive that training, but I understand they're longer.
Yeah, we went to WAM and it was 3 days, all 3 days.
And everybody needs to, whether it's council members, public officers, have their certifications done by about this time next year, by the summer of 2024. If it's not done, I'm hearing that funding will be withheld from government entities that have failed to comply.
Is this something that has to be redone on a,
No.
okay?
Right.
And individuals that have a financial background and or degree, there's some options to waive out of that. And then new board members coming on, I believe they have about a year to also complete the training. WAM, I've been told, will have an online go at your own pace option. But again, I've also been told that in the long run will be more time consuming. Any questions for me?
A question, and I don't know if you can provide the answer to this, but how far out does that go? So for instance, would it apply to the various boards that use public funds on city-owned properties that they're leasing? So Lotra, Golf Course Board, Senior Center Board,
Yes,
all of them would need to do that.
yes.
Okay, and has that been communicated to them? I mentioned at the Senior Center Board meeting earlier this month, and they were surprised to hear that and thought it probably didn't apply to them. So I was wanting to get confirmation about that and what's the appropriate way to share that with them. Does it come from me? Should it come from someone else
It's
here?
actually a statute that Rochelle has it down. It came through the legislature that anybody that had anything to do with public funds or that were affiliated with the municipality, because that's where the fraud has taken place. There's so many on the board level and the commission level that that's why they're mandating these classes for.
Totally get the rationale why. I'm more asking about the process of informing the members of these boards. So who's there currently, and then obviously that needs to be part of their onboarding of future board members as well. So what's the right process in place to make sure that's communicated to them? Because right now I would take a firm stand that probably none of them are aware of that.
I think the Department of Audit is still tweaking their bugs, because truly, I don't know how at their level they can manage every single board that's under municipality with the comings and goings of board members. I don't think that they have all of that worked out. It's us as a municipality being diligent to pass the word along to these boards that we've done what we can to. Because they keep attendance on it and they give all that to the Department of Audit.
Right.
And then I suppose that, I think this first year is really going to be a learning year, because we're going to have some boards that are going to have no idea that they had to participate in that.
And that's what I'm getting at. So I maybe try to ask the question, who specifically from the city of Lander will tell these boards? Is that's what you're thinking, or did you just get voluntold, Rochelle?
I was volunteering her.
Sharon likes to volunteer me for a lot of things.
We call that voluntold.
Yeah, that's fair. I know Ray Jean has talked to some of the boards that she's involved with. I started today with Lift and Leda. So I will gather a list of all of our boards and reach out to the senior boards and the golf course boards. I know some of the individuals who are on the golf course boards, but I don't know the senior board members because I've not had an opportunity to interact with them. So I may be reaching out to some of you for your help with those matters.
Great, thank you. That's what I was looking for. But
I
there is-
understand.
there-
And the answer is we're not that organized yet, but we're trying.
Okay, we're getting there. Thank you.
Okay. I'm moving on, new business. This, just reminding everybody, this is a work session. It's for the council to have discussion with the department heads, so. And there's no action taken tonight on these. So we'll move on. Amy from the Lower Foundation presentation. Come on up.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for letting me come here. I know most of you, some of you I don't, but so for those of you that don't know, and people who are watching, I'm Amy Vincent. I'm the community officer for the Lower Foundation. And I don't attend in person, but I'm watching, I usually watch like the day after. So I'm paying attention to what's going on. And it occurred to me, I don't know, in late May, early June, that there were some things that you all were discussing, and I can't even remember now what they were, but it just occurred to me that like, it might be helpful for you all to know what's happening at the Lower Foundation and the projects that citizens, residents of Lander are bringing forward and the things that we're funding. And so I just kind of want to like give you an update, give you an opportunity to ask questions if you have any. And overall kind of just like give a little bit of hope to everyone. Because what I have experienced in this position is a lot of hope. Like people only come to me when they have a solution to a problem, right? And so everyone who's coming to me is wanting to make Lander a better place. And most of the time, 99% of the time, people aren't complaining to me. People are wanting to like work and bring people together. And I think sometimes like the overarching narrative of different topics can be kind of contentious, right? Like we've got these people who believe this thing and these people who believe this thing. And it's like, okay, but underneath it all, like we want the same sorts of things. And so there's just a lot of hope and inspiration that I get every day from our residents, from our community. So to start, is that since January, the Lohr Foundation has funded 45 projects. And that I wrote that number, I had to give this to Rochelle last week, I think. So in that time, there's been like 4 or 5 more funded. And, total of $344,000 put into the community. That's also gone up since we have those several more projects funded. And that's not insignificant. And also like we've funded several local events. The pig roast is one of those. We had a great time on Saturday, had so many good conversations with people. And those numbers I feel like are impressive, and it says a lot to like how much people are willing to go to work for Lander. And also like, I can't remember, like that's so many that if you were like, what all have you funded this year? It's kind of like, I have to like check my records because 45 is more than anyone can like hold in their head at one time. So that's really fun to have that much stuff going on. And one of the things that makes me the most excited about that number and about those projects is like who's bringing these things forward. Out of those 45, and you'll see this in what's in your packet, but out of those 45, there's only 9 nonprofits. It's mostly everyday people. It's a pastor, it's a mom, it's a dog lover, it's a cyclist, it's a teacher, just everyday people who see that they have the opportunity to make a difference if they can get $2,000 from the Lohr Foundation, if they can get $9,000 from the Lohr Foundation. And they do, and they're making a difference. And so some of these examples, the middle school, the tech teacher, Joe Meyer, he was at a conference last year. He saw this 3D metal printer like at work. It sounds super cool. It's not really, a lot of things are like not necessarily my wheelhouse. So if I misspeak, I apologize to the project champions. I'm just like representing as best as I can. But what I understand is like this metal 3D printer can print things like screws. It can print things like door handles for like older cars that have metal door handles. They can print like metal pieces and parts. And he's taking the opportunity to take his tech club. Yeah, it's his tech club to like kind of benefit the community. Like, can we get orders from the community, pieces and parts that people need, and the middle school will print them, so our kids are learning this like really cool technical skill that involves, math and design and all of these pieces, and also like benefiting the community. So if anyone has an older car that needs a new door handle, you should talk to Joe Meyer. And then the next one, First Friday for Teens, something that maybe some of you guys have heard about, is just a mom who has some teenagers who was concerned about the lack of things for our kids to do on weekends and the amount of kids that were getting in trouble with drugs and alcohol. And so her idea was like, let's give them something to do. And she has spearheaded this effort. So it's every first Friday at the E-Free Church on the west side of town. And they're just using that space. And all kinds of community businesses and groups have sponsored different events. And I went to one of them in June. It was so much fun. They did a game night. So there are all kinds of, board games, but also kind of sillier games like they did. What's the one where you like sit in the chairs and then musical chairs? They did like a big version of musical chairs. And then they did bingo, like with a wheel, like a full on bingo. And these kids were into it. And it was public school kids, it was homeschool kids, it was 13-year-olds, it was 18-year-olds, and there was like 65 kids that were there. It was so much fun. And then I think, in July, they did a karaoke thing that it was the same sort of, it's just kind of building momentum, giving our kids something to do. I'm just going to kind of skip around because I could just talk for a long time and I don't want to keep everybody. But we have a community member who had been feeding some of our homeless population out of the back of her car. She would get phone calls from friends who would say, hey, we, saw so-and-so on the side of the road, and she'd show up and like make them a sandwich out of the back of her car. And so she had that action, like developed this idea that she wanted to start a mobile soup kitchen. And so we helped fund a food truck for her, and she's still like in the process of getting that all figured out. It took her a little while to find the right truck, but it's a great idea that will like supplement, the Friday night community meal, and will supplement the food bank. And she'll be around the whole county, but Lander's part of that, and serving like really good looking food. Like she's worked in several different cafes and she had pictures of like beautiful sandwiches. So something that gives dignity and nutrition and, all those things. It's a pretty cool project. And then something that I find there's two projects here that I am pretty excited about, especially like coming off of the pig roast and the mental health awareness that is being raised in that arena. And that is that the Fremont Counseling Center is opening a drop-in center. They have a house that is on 8th and Washakie, I think, that they are turning into a place where those that are struggling with mental health issues can gather and have community, like have meals, have activities. There's going to be free mental health screenings that take place there, and several other like different activities that are just kind of like, here's a place that you can come. You don't, as a therapist, you're not allowed to say like, hey, you're struggling with this, and I know these 3 other people that are also struggling with that. You should hang out. You can't do that. And so here's a place where like that can happen naturally, where people can find that support together. I think it's pretty exciting. And then the other one along those lines is the Tree Line Project, which is some folks who, Lander residents who realized, we've got Knowles and we've got Core Expeditions, the Catholic colleges, outdoor school. And those are really focused on like bringing people in and taking them out into the winds. And these folks just thought like, but what about the people in Lander who want to get in the mountains but don't have access, or they don't have, they can't afford the gear, or they, whatever the barrier is. And then also recognizing that being outside is really beneficial to everyone's mental health. And just kind of using this opportunity to take people on wilderness trips for free. Nobody has to pay for anything. And as much as possible, they're going to let people keep the gear that they use on those trips so that it's something that they can continue to do. Like hopefully, they're kind of eliminating some of the barriers to access and like teaching them how to use the mountains as another tool in their pocket to deal with their mental health. So that's kind of like the brief rundown. There's so many more things going on that are inspiring and hopeful. And Missy, I think you said a couple weeks ago, you kind of reiterated it several times about like, it's a small group of volunteers, and that's true. And I think also what I'm seeing anyway, is that like that group of volunteers is kind of expanding, just as like, given the opportunity, people are stepping up, and that is really exciting to see. So that's what I have. Does anyone have any questions?
Councilman Larson?
Yeah.
Thank you for being here today. On the 45 projects and 344,000 is definitely nothing to sneeze at. So you're doing great, but I just wanted to let you know that as I was hanging out at the Riverton Gate, the Denver airport there last night, and found 4 other people that I was,
Yep.
but we were talking with one person there, and they were just elated with the Lore Foundation because they had helped fund some stuff with the pipe and drum band, for the community, and then also there's a couple there that was doing some stuff with pickleball, and they said, well, geez, we never even thought about that, but you do some wonderful things, so thank you.
Yeah. And I just want to piggyback on that just a second. I hear that a lot, people saying thank you to me. And I work hard. I won't say that I don't, because I do, but I mean, it's like the community of Lander are the real champions, like the pickleball folks, like they worked really hard to make those tennis courts at the high school work as pickleball. And like, same with the pipe band, like they work really hard. So just to kind of like give that back to the community a little bit, like they're working really hard too.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thanks to Amy for coming in and sharing us a lot of these I hadn't heard about, and I should keep a better eye on your website because now I'm looking at it. There's
Yeah.
excellent information there. So I think I would say thank you to you as well. Thank you to your director, and thanks to your board for their investments here. I can't tell you how many conversations I'm in where somebody's, we're problem solving or brainstorming, like, well, what about lore? Should we ask lore? And I think that the foundation does fill a really important niche when there's maybe not an appropriate place for public funding, or there's private funding that's prioritizing other places. Variety of reasons there might be a gap, but lore often fills that gap. So I think I'm really grateful you're here and that the board is funding projects in Lander to this tune. It's amazing. I don't want to bring in a little bit of a negative pieces, but I think that we have only another few years of Lore's presence in Lander. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And do you expect a phase out, or is there an end date? What do we
So glad you brought that up.
Okay.
Because
really
that
not.
was something I wanted to mention. Yeah, so the idea behind how the Lore Foundation is working is that we will be in a place, or the foundation will be in a place for 5 years. And we have just passed year 3 in Lander. So we've got about 2 years left. I don't leave when the foundation leaves because Lander's home and I couldn't do this job in any other place. So just to like kind of put that on the table, but the Lander was the first place that the Lore Foundation came to with this way that they are working. They worked differently previously. And so Lander will be the first place that the foundation leaves. And so they're still kind of like working out what exactly that might look like. But I think it is an important thing for us to recognize that like Lore won't be here forever. So we need to take advantage of it while it's here. And then the foundation, the idea is, the foundation will go to another community in the Mountain West. We're in 6 communities right now and going into a community in Idaho in the fall. So we'll have 7 total. And when we leave Lander, we'll go into another one. And so the idea is that after, 20 or 30 years or whatever, the whole rural Mountain West is doing better. And we've done it like one community at a time. So does that answer?
It does. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And can I, Mayor, one final follow-up? Tell us in our final, 2 years here, I'm curious about your success rate with your board approving projects and what sort of criteria or prioritization that they bring. So what should people be thinking about?
Oh,
in terms
yeah.
of getting a successful application through?
Great idea. So we are really focused on, the Lore Foundation is really focused on many and small, which means like there is no many means like there's no grant deadline. Like you have an idea, bring it to me. And we'll get it through as fast as we can, or as, you know, sometimes people are like, I don't need this until, 6 months from now, but I just wondered if it was even a possibility. That's fine. We'll work at your pace. And small means under 30,000, but 10,000 is kind of like the real sweet spot. And the idea behind that is instead of like taking $300,000 and putting it all in one bucket, all for one project, like let's take your $10,000 idea, your $20,000 idea. I did a $148 grant last week. Like, let's take all of those little ideas and together as a community, we chip away at the big complex problems. And the other piece of it being small is that means that the board is more willing to take a risk, right? If you come with a $2,000 idea, that is not a big risk. It's not a big financial risk for them to say, we don't know if that'll work, but let's see. Let's see if that works in Lander. And so I think the success rate in general, like I am the first reviewer. So I'm not going to bring anything forward to the board that I don't think that they're going to approve. So I think in the year plus that I've been with the Lore Foundation, there's been 2 maybe that haven't gone through, but there have been several others that I've just pointed people in other directions. Like, let's get you funding from a different source because we're not a great fit. The things that are a great fit for us are things that have a kind of clear problem and solution. That's like how we frame all of our funding requests. What's the community problem? So when I write a problem statement for a funding request, it's always Lander residents lack access to, or the Lander youth face barriers with this. It's always like Lander is the subject of the actual sentence versus like, I don't want to pick on any nonprofits. Pick a nonprofit name, has this problem, which isn't necessarily, it's not a bad thing. It's just like, we want the focus to be on the community. And then the solution is like, let's buy a shed for the pickleball courts. Let's buy, new bagpipes or whatever the thing is. Yes. Oh,
Got a question? Okay, go ahead.
sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. So are there matches attached to this? Are there strings attached? Explain I guess I don't fully understand. I understand all the projects and people coming for money.
But like the practical process part?
Well, is this somebody ask you and you give them money and there's no strings attached? Okay.
I mean, more or less, the strings would be like, please put your, please put our logo on your poster. Please give us credit, but that's,
Okay.
and if people didn't do that, we might be, a little disappointed about it, but it wouldn't be it's not a deal breaker.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And there's
Thank
no
you.
matches, and we want the process to be as easy as possible so that a parent who has never written a grant before can come get money. And so that's where like my job comes in. Hopefully, like I'm very approachable and make that process easy. That's what I work for. Sorry, Julia, I didn't mean to interrupt, but did I finish your? Okay.
And congrats on that. Congrats on that success rate. That's excellent.
Is there any other questions? Are you done, Lauren? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank- Thank you. Thanks, Amy.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you for
guys.
coming. Regine?
Thank you again, Amy. I want you to know that the city has already benefited greatly from some of these Lower Foundation projects. Before they turned into this model where they had a Lander person, we got $100,000 to start Healthy Rivers Initiative. So that was our first experience with Lower. Since that time, they have helped the Table Mountain Living community with branding and printing fundraiser material. They have helped through a nonprofit revitalize the dirt bike park. They have helped the Summer Spark program, which helped us during COVID. Everybody remembers that. They helped on the senior solar system on the roof. So that helps reduce the bills for the community center that comes out of our tax base. And they also helped fund Kara Kolovich through LCAN, which is, she does a lot of energy efficiency work for the city using our statistics. So she does a lot of the legwork that Lance and I don't have time to do. She came in last week and interviewed our water department, said that clean water was one of their high initiatives. And so we're working on her on a clean water project also.
Good. Well, Lori, we
Oh,
thank you guys very much. Amy. And Fuller Foundation. Okay, moving on. Big topic. City park camping fee and donation discussion. We asked Lance to go back to the department heads and see what they come up with. So Lance, I'll let you start off.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this can be a definite open discussion because I think some of the direction from the council would be appreciated as to what we're trying to accomplish, whether it's a reduction in camping use in the park, you know, what our goals would be here, or if it is just profitability. In talking with Jason, you know, his feeling is he doesn't really want to handle cash if he doesn't have to. And so that whole issue when we're emptying drop boxes or managing that, he doesn't want to become a camp host. He would rather manage the grounds versus being somebody who's managing a campground and the facilities associated with that. And I think that ultimately he's just looking for something to help relocate tents and control events. And so he doesn't have a problem with what's happening in the park most of the time, but said he was a little overwhelmed with the numbers when it comes to events. So our Climbers Fest tents came almost all the way down to the playground, and he's having to try to move or adjust and shift things and try to direct people in the right areas and control that situation. Some of his concern is that the Parks Department would be put on call to start providing services. That we were, depending on what people were coming into camp, their expectation for a campground, what facilities we're providing, who's going to do that? You know, right now they don't feel like they have the capacity or the staff to do that. And I said, yes, I agree with all of those statements. I'll relay those on. The other thing that we're a little worried about is vandalism after hours. You know, our park is very safe for the most part, but things do happen at the park. And, you know, we've had things, theft, breaking of outlets, things get vandalized, our bathrooms get vandalized. We're constantly in repair of our facilities and trying to put them back together and keep them in the bare minimum shape so that we don't have things to break, whether it be glass or steel toilet seats or all our toilet paper disappearing or our drinking fountains being busted. That is constant effort to put those things back together. When you look at what a campground typically makes across America, just do a quick Google search. Campgrounds that you could expect $50,000 to $90,000 a year. Our one full-time staff, if we had to hire one to manage a camping facility or to become a host of a campground, would cost us more than we would make. So if you're adding one staff person, you're already backwards. So if you can't do it with what you have an issue. The other thing that starts to come up is at what point are we competing with private business? We know of 3 different businesses in town who charge for camping. And so we're not really that. We're a place where you can go in and you can park and you can stay overnight. We don't classify ourselves as a campground. But if we start adding facilities to this, at what point do we become that? And at that point, that's probably something we have to put out for a company or a business to bid on or be a part of and to run and manage for us, rather than us being able to manage that because we had to give everybody equal opportunity and we can't subsidize these programs with taxpayer dollars. So it starts to create issues. We thought that the best thing we could do is try to advertise more for donation. You know, if we can put more posters up, if we can put better posters, if we can have a campaign to drive I think we only have made $390. Is that right, Shari?
Just on the Climbers Fest, we got $155 in donation.
So we're over 500 for the year in donations. So it's not much that we're receiving, but if we push that system, it could be profitable. The other thing that came up with that is like if we create posters, making sure that somebody can't kind of redirect that system to being paid into their own bank accounts. We don't want to have somebody put their own QR code up on our QR code and, not trying to put that idea out there, but that did come up in our discussions to make sure that people are being honest and it is going where it needs to go. So if we'll do whatever the council asks us to do. I think that the solution to the impact on the park was more so, all right, the biggest time that we are really hit with our highest level of service and garbage and camping and hit hard is around events. So I think that was around some of the event-based fees that we tried to handle previously, and we're still, paying more in garbage and replacement of toilet paper and those things than we produce from these events, rather than going to the individual tent person and saying, can we get $5 from you or $10 from you, and trying to manage that situation. So I think it becomes a management issue. I mean, we're open to creative ideas and suggestions. If the council has other ideas that they want to explore, we're definitely open to that. We're not saying we won't do it. I think it's just, that's what's directed us to the decision that it's easier to manage it and manage the grounds and to do it at a very low level rather than to try to go out and run a cash business.
Any questions?
Mayor?
Go
Please.
ahead, Council Marson.
Okay. Lance, I appreciate that. I've probably got as much public comment on this one subject as I have on anything that we've discussed as a council in quite some time. And I've been very impressed. The people, they love the park. They like the idea that Lander is open, it's available, and they think that the free camping is just a real plus for the community and for those that stop by. I think that if you've read Christian's email, he talked about the number of people that's just been up there, the campers that he's seen just in the last month or so, and it's phenomenal the amount of people that are using that. But the people that I've answered, I says, understand the idea that this is just part of the community of Lander, and it's one of the good things that people talk about and just really bring to a lot of different people and talk up the community with it. But I says, is there anything wrong with the volunteer payment system? And I bring up Shari's discussion there last week, or a couple of weeks ago, that we got a total of $390 there last year from our donations. So a little over $1 a day. Boy, we cut a fat hog in the hind end there. I just but I think that there's ways that we can promote this, like I said, through advertising, whether it's a QR code that you utilize, and whether somebody pirates that thing from you and pockets their bank account. I don't know how you do away with those things, but nobody was opposed to having a volunteer pay system, and I think that we can do a dramatic increase over the $390 if we put a little bit of effort and so forth into it. I understand the idea of we don't want to have a camp host there. We don't want anybody going around knocking on tent doors and say, okay, alms for the poor, give us a hand here. But I think that if there's information not only on the website, but I think that it needs to be in the park itself, that says go to this website or do something there, that you can show some appreciation for what you've got here. And I didn't have anybody that it was again somebody voluntarily donating to the city, but I sure did have a lot of people that were again having it be forced because of, like I say, having to have somebody there and getting upside down with employees and if we started a camp facility, you know, then we're gonna have to upgrade the bathrooms. We're gonna have to do this, you know, and there's just lots of things there that are detrimental to having mandatory payments. And so if we can work and figure out some way that we can pick up the voluntary payments, I think that would be a real plus for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Stubble?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Lance, for bringing back the staff perspectives as well and doing some thinking on this. I also received lots of comment and actually sent out some emails to a couple different agencies and nonprofits that are involved in either camping in the area or camping in the park to ask for their perspectives and impact too. And a lot of what I got back was, yeah, interesting. We need to know more, you know, what would we be looking at? How much, you know, with the PB, all these kind of hypotheticals. And I realized we're having the discussion today because we've made a few comments at different meetings of like, hey, let's look at that. And so now we're looking at it. But you started out, Lance, saying we need to define our goal here. And I heartily second that. You know, and I was thinking through this, I thought, why do we want to do this? And then we can, until we know that why, we can't craft the policy to get to that outcome, right? So if it's revenue generation, if that's our goal, then we need to know what the costs of administration would be, what the changes to the sites would need to be, our, you know, estimated usage and estimated what the fee would be to see if that would bring in enough money to not be actually then losing money in this venture. And I'm pretty skeptical what I heard, Lance, from what you just said about what we could bring in and what that would mean for full-time staffer. It sounds like you might be as well, that we actually would be generating revenue at this stage of analysis. And so then I think, what are our other goals? We want to better manage the camping. Are we seeing some issues with conflicts? Are we seeing heavy traffic use? Are we seeing folks camping where they shouldn't be? I think we can solve that separate from a fee discussion, right? And then I think we have the donation piece, which helps maintain the character of the park and maybe brings in a little bit to offset some of the costs, but clearly not enough to you know, raise profit on this, which is not my goal for the park. So I would second the increase, the visibility and access to the donations. I had a few folks tell me like, yeah, I've donated, and it's really kind of annoying, right? Like you have to do a login, you have to create a registration, you have to get your password. And like, how many of us are like, oh my God, another password. How am I going to remember this? And you know, so next time you're going to create it again. So I don't know if there's a way we can solve that, but I would love to see a simpler process for donations, not being cash though, clearly. That's another headache. Better access, better outreach from those events that really bring in the numbers, you know, having the Climbers Fest, having the bike groups that come there, making sure it's a part of all their informational materials. Here's where you donate. Here's why you want to donate. Here's what Lander does, you know, for us. I think we can really ask them to improve their communication about that donations. Until then, yeah, I have a lot of questions about the administrative costs and the operations if we were to actually run a campground, and I'm fairly skeptical that we would actually make money off that. And I think it would have an incredible change to the character of our town. I think the generosity of having free camping in the park really helps define the character of our community for a lot of people that come through, and it's certainly a major economic boost as well for many of the businesses that would lose that revenue if campers were going for free camping outside of town and then choosing to not come to town for beer and food because they could cook at their campsite and they don't want to drive, you know, under the influence. So I would need to see, yeah, I think if the council wants to go in the revenue generation, I have a lot more questions about how we would actually create that system and the costs it would incur. And for now, I stand in favor of improving the donation system and maintaining the free camping for now. And if we need to address traffic, if we need to address impacts, let's do that separately.
Thank you. Councilman Hahn? I'm just wondering how long it's been since anybody's been to Boyson Lake. Cause they seem to have a pretty good fee schedule. You pull in, you either put your card in the machine or you fill out a little paper, put your money in there with your license plate and everything. Louis Lake, $10 a night for camping. Boyson Reservoir for a resident, $7 a day. Or if you want to spend the night, it's $18.25. If you're a non-resident, it's $12 a day, $32 a night. So, you know, Sinks Canyon, day is free for everybody. Residents, $11.25 a night. Nighttime, $20.25 a night. So yes, it is lost revenue, and I don't see how hard it would be to have somebody walk around and look for the little coupon that can be, you tell them, place it in this spot or in this part of your windshield or on your tent. And they're using the facilities. I think people fail to remember that this is Lander City Park. This is the public's park. We got people coming in and utilizing the facilities and using them. We don't have to add anything to that. You know, they can throw their tent and do what they always do. It doesn't have to be anything special. If they can afford to get here and do what they want to do, they can pay $5 a night. It's not for somebody to threaten and say, well, we're gonna go out of town and camp for free. We'll have at it. We'll lose what, $500 if, you know, people spend their money somewhere else. It's I think we're missing out on an opportunity. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Hahn?
Actually, I agree with all the discussion here on both sides. One other perspective here that I think about is if you go to Riverton and see, we've got a huge amount of homeless all over the place. One other, and I don't know how bad it is here. It sounds like we're not too bad, but you know, one angle on this is if we have a camping fee, we have control over the people that are there, especially the homeless. And I just, if you go over there and take a look, it is really bad. And I would really, I know it's a bad situation, but I think that's another angle here that we can control what's possibly in our town, especially with, you know, all the free camping. So that's just something to think about. The control end of what we have. So anyway, that's all I had, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Missy?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Lance, for your insights and conversations with staff. And I'd agree that defining what our goal is in the big picture is something pretty important. For me, one of my short-term goals is for City Park to, I don't know the right way to say this. Maybe I'll try to explain it by the challenges I've seen and what I've heard from folks, which is that City Park feels overrun by others and it's no longer like the residents' park. And I think especially walking along the pathway in the morning. So I was there Thursday morning, this past Thursday at 6:20 a.m. and there are 54 vehicles camping in City Park. And a number of them were right along the parkway. Can't remember the exact number, but it was about 24 that were, you know, right there. And so my casual morning, enjoying the outdoors, decompress, start to the day was actually traipsing through kitchens, bathrooms, living rooms, people still sleeping on the ground. You know, so for me in the short term, I would love to see better structure about where folks can park. I would love to suggest that there's no parking on the riverside of the City Park Drive until you're past McManus Bridge. And then also better clarification. And I realize for some of the big events, it might be tough, but you know, I noticed at the pig roast, there's a sign, no camping in this area. I have no idea what that means. You know, it would be to me a lot more helpful to say tent camping takes place on the east side of the ditch from south of the stage to the City Park entrance and have a map of it or something like that. You know, I've had mornings where there's tents right next to the playground, you know, like you're nowhere near where our intention is. So some clarity about where overnight parking is permissible, where it's not. And for me, again, that part of that is along the river on the part that myself and many other residents are using has lost its charm. And I think one of the reasons folks love City Park. I think there's some, I both hear the concerns about payment system for that. And I also, right now, I think we don't have the structure in place that someone can state, I'm parked in this slot and that's how you check that I've paid. And I think until we do a park master plan, we probably really can't come up with a structure like that. I would think in terms of finances, I think there's a lot to still be determined. Again, if, 50 of those folks had paid a $10 fee, that would be a whole lot of money to compensate a campground host and still have some funds available for managing trash and whatnot. I would like to think something like this and create expectations of glorified, beautiful restrooms, marble tile kind of thing, but it would help folks say, yeah, that's a reasonable fee. It's not going to put anybody out of it and whatnot. But again, I don't think right now we have the infrastructure in terms of designated parking and kind of a spot to be able to note who's paid, who hasn't. I think there's ways to address some of the concerns about not having cash. Any big city you go to, there's a machine on the curb, you swipe your credit card, it prints out a ticket, you put it in your windshield. You don't have it when somebody comes by, you get a ticket. I think there's ways to address some of the concerns there. Likewise, I think the QR code can be a little challenging, and I think the concern for someone to put their own QR code is real. So again, if there's a way we can simplify, go to the cityoflander.org webpage and have an easy payment system there might be one, we don't have to worry about fraudulent actions from others, and also make it easier for folks to do that. Those would be my big ones. If we ever got to payment for that, I think it's reasonable to have a different fee schedule for the vans, the truck RV combo versus the walk-in, bike-in type thing, which are some of the concerns folks brought up at very different levels of service. So, for me, again, in the short term, it's really, I think, minimizing the impact to the local residents of City Park. I want City Park to be open and an invitation to others passing through. I think we can do a better job of finding that balance point there at this point in time. And, folks are going to say, well, where do the other folks go? Well, exactly. If there's a limit of what we offer, then other RV parks can have that business and we can help them out for it. So that's my more than 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Thank you. John, you have something else?
I'm gonna get Shari.
I just want to point out that if you Google Lander free camping, just on the first page alone, there's 50 different websites that talk about our town and free camping, and we're not paying any advertising for those. So I think you have to remember that we also run this municipality. Our largest revenue stream is sales tax. So those people that come in, they're going to buy at least one thing that's taxable, whether they're buying gas, whether they're buying sunscreen, whatever, that's money that's coming in that we normally would not have. And to get that much just on I've never even heard of half of these websites that talk about how great our free camping is in Lander.
Did you have another question?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, that it's funny how we all see things in a different way. I had one couple write me a letter and say, every morning, my wife and I, we go walk down through the park. What a peaceful, wonderful place it is to walk. When they say we've never been harassed by anybody, we just there's people that'll talk to you and they talk about how how nice it is to have the free parking there and the camping and so forth. But like I say, I think that it's not necessarily your attitude, but maybe the action that's going on in the park today. I believe it was Christian that made the comment that you have these big buses and motorhomes and that kind of stuff, and they've got their steps sprawled out onto the sidewalk and so forth. I think that's an issue, that we can deal with and should deal with. I also think that if we are able to come up with some kind of volunteer fee that you ought to at least have a suggestion, somebody can say, okay, well, I paid $1 and I stayed there for 3 days and, I paid. But I think you need to say, $5 a night, $10 a night, $20 a night, whatever, depending on what you've got. But I think that you need to give a little bit of guidance there. I like Missy's idea about going to the city website, maybe rather than having something out there, the QR code that somebody could pirate. But I think that there's ways around it.
It's a work in progress. A lot of good ideas come out tonight, but
Mr. Mayor, can I
Yeah.
bring up one
oh, you can go ahead.
quick issue?
Go ahead.
Something Lance said kind of sparked a memory in me, in my mind. It was a number of years ago, we had the same discussion. I think Councilman Hahn, you may have been the only council member on the council at the time. And Mr. Mayor, you were as well. The discussion was whether or not it was even legal to charge for camping because of subsidizing taxpayer money to be able to fund something like this. And at the time, forgive me, it's been a long time since I had done the research. What it really came down to was, I don't know if we can even do it legally, number one, and I'd have to do the research. So don't, I'll do the research on that. And if we can't do it, then it really came down to either it being free and allowing people to be there or not having it at all. And that's really what it came down to last time. But you'll have to forgive me, I wasn't prepared to, it was just something that came back to me as Lance mentioned it today, that there could be a major legal issue if we did want to charge as a city for camping. And if that's the case, then it might come down to either it's free and we take donations or we don't allow camping at all, but I'll have to do the research on that.
That would be grateful. I don't want to forget Melinda up there on the screen. That's where I was headed. So Melinda?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that and appreciate the conversation as a whole. I have definitely, Adam, I'm really glad you brought that up because I have struggled with what that looks like as far as the city being able to charge and considered a campground, if you will, versus free camping. I think there's some really good ideas. I want to just acknowledge several really good comments via email from constituents. Really good conversation that all of them were solution based. I've got to respect anybody that can come up, with a topic like this with some form of a solution. So that's very much appreciated. I think that, Adam, if you could look into the legality of this situation for us. I am a little disappointed that over the Climbers Festival, we only generated $100 in donations, or 100 plus. I feel like that's a little bit telling of consumption. And as we know, Americans are the biggest consumers. And I think that sometimes we forget, you're getting a really decent service. And there was a lot of traffic in the park at that time. And I love the Climbers Festival. It's good for our community. It generates a lot of revenue for us in sales tax, etc. But we are offering a place to be. And I do think that we could promote it differently and be able to engage some of those folks that are staying there to want to contribute a little bit more to our community and to the park so that it can remain there for users and consumers. So I do appreciate all the input and continued discussion. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm just gonna go back a little bit. Here a while back, we come up with a fee schedule to help solve some of these issues. And the council voted no to move forward those fee schedules. Now here we're going back asking for more funding when we could have collected from the fee schedule that we had put in. And I know that wasn't welcomed by the council. So now we're here talking about raising fees again and charging them out. Easy way to collect them was the fee schedule, but we decided to go a different direction. So like I'm saying, it brings back thing you talk about charging people. We have citizens from Lander go down there and use that to camp in also. I have one church group that goes down there and do their Boy Scouts. you know, and they set their tents. We have other churches that go down there that set up, do their youth group stuff. You know, so I don't know, it's a slippery slope. I think it's a good thing that we have the park. I think we're nationwide known as having this, and to change it right now, we're in the middle of a stream. So this is something we have to work on as a council. Get our priorities set, what you want to do, and we can move forward. But this year, I think we'll have to go with the way we are, because we're here in almost August. And camping will slow down and people will slow down a little bit. So as to change something right now in the middle of the stream, I don't think we're ready to do that. I think we're ready to give some directions. So next spring we have a game plan. Because right now to get signs made, put up donation boxes and stuff, it's going to take a while to get those done. So we're going to be the end of August before any of that happens. So on my direction, I think we have more discussion where you want to be and why we want to do this, and make sure things are legal first. And then we can move forward with other ideas. Councilman Hahn.
Well, the only comment I'll say to that is we've been pushing this down the road. We didn't make a decision way back when we were talking about the fee schedule. And the other thing is every one of us listen to different groups of people, and people, in my case, I'm listening to certain people, and obviously we have different groups, but there are people that are concerned about this. This is not me saying that this is my idea. This is people that are saying that nothing is free. Nothing is free at all. You know, everybody says free, free, free. Well, it's free for the people that go, and the people that live here pay the taxes. Well, the people that I'm listening to have a problem always paying, always, you know, we have, you know, all the bills keep going up every year. And they feel that other people should be supporting. And so my comment is there are people out there that have concerns, and that's who I'm voicing. I'm voicing the people that tell me what to do. So, I mean, if we kick this thing down the road, then there are people.
I'm
that are
not
gonna be
saying we're
happy.
kicking that
So-
down the road. I'm saying we're gonna get our ducks in a row so we can, if you're gonna implement this, it's gonna have to be not in the middle of a season, time we get everything together, new boxes ordered. I mean, if you want to try and put something together right now, do it. No, do it.
Saying that we kick things down the road. That's what we do.
No,
And I'm just one of the guys. That's all.
I know, but what I'm saying is, and I'm just trying to think practical at what it takes to get materials together, get things printed out. And get your ideas of what you want to do as a council as a whole. You got to have goal setting, and we got to set a goal. What do you want? Where do you want it to be? You know,
That's what we're talking.
that's what I'm talking to. But if you want to do it tomorrow, you want to implement it next fall, next spring, you're going to try and do it this fall. I mean, we've got to set this out. When do you want this to take place? You know, I'm just asking.
Mayor.
Go ahead.
Well, I do think those are good discussions. I mean, we do have to set some goals, and that's why we're having this discussion. I don't think any of us are crazy enough to think this could happen overnight. I mean, it's been something that we've been kind of throwing around and discussing. And, you know, I think it's as easy as to say are we going to do anything? It sounds like across the board, we probably need to do something. And so let's set that goal. Let's talk about what does that look like, and what are we thinking? I mean, I think it's always what I love about this council is it's a diverse council, so you can have some good quality discussion about the pros and cons of both sides. Which, I mean, that's the whole point of all of this. Is that I feel like, although it doesn't personally bother me to have free camping in City Park, I don't feel like it's something that's broken, has to be fixed, but our constituents do. And so it's really solving like, okay, if we're seeing there's so many great ideas being brought up here, there's great ideas from constituents about, okay, let's think about, number one, do we have the facts we need? Do we have the numbers that we need? Do we feel like the folks that come into Lander City Park and are staying for free are contributing to our community in a way that we as a council could feel comfortable saying to our constituents, you know what? They're generating dollars for our community. It is worth us taking over some of those costs to maintain the park. And it sounds like our maintenance folks feel like they do that the majority of the time, unless there's a big event. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that they feel supported in that. I do feel like we do need to talk about signage, and I think we could come up with a signage situation that could benefit in the shorter term, which means tents over here, cars here, RVs here. That makes sense to me. There's structure in that allows for, like, I don't know if it was Josh or Dan that said that allows some accountability within our format that doesn't require a whole lot more. Same with Missy. I think she mentioned as well that there's some smaller solutions that can happen maybe this year that we could then look at, long term. And Missy, I think you made the point of the master plan with the parks master plan and really looking at that. And we certainly can't become a campsite, and nor I don't think anybody wants to. I don't necessarily see that as being the direction that we're going, but I do think it's worth having a being solution focused and keeping a goal. So let's talk to next work session. We have this is where we want to be in a month with this plan and maybe moving forward. That way we have Adam doing his research on whether or not it's legal. We have a couple of other options to look at via the website, charge, etc. But then being solution focused one way or the other. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Stubble.
If I may make a request, Mr. Mayor, as we do the ongoing research, Adam, or Rochelle, or whoever wants to take it, I pulled up the Department of Revenue, property tax exemption standards, because I would be curious for an opinion on if we were charging a fee and we were in competition with RV parks, would we then be not exempt for City Park or portions of City Park from property tax? And what would we estimate that cost would be to the city as well? That I think will be an opinion that would be helpful for us to consider too. Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
I will just add to that, Councilmember Stubble, that is something that the county assessor is always very interested in. And I have to fill out paperwork about that on a regular routine basis. And when we acquired the 10 acres next to our current city park on Fremont Street, you noticed it came before you as a resolution to make that part of the park structure. And that is one of the reasons why.
Councilman Hahn.
Mayor, maybe one way to, and this probably save a lot of time, would be maybe we have the council here, we have the mayor here, that we say, who's in favor of putting a fee there and who isn't, and we just raise our hand and we see if the majority wants to not, or the majority wants to move forward with this. Why don't we just do it now? And then we'll just save a lot of time.
Well, so Dan, are we talking about, so I'm very much in favor of having a voluntary fee, that it's, you're not actually breaking their arm, but you're making them pee down their leg a little bit. And
I really don't think that's going to work. And I think that if you want to think both the way I was thinking and the way everybody else is thinking on a fee, that you would have a fee. I'm talking like what they do they have a box, you put the money in it. Yeah, somebody doesn't want to do that, but you know what? Sometimes you have to do things you don't like to do. But I was thinking an envelope and see how just a trial, try it for a summer and see how it works. And then we've tried, then we can, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, we say, hey, we tried to do this and it didn't work, but I am for, trying to actually, do a box with an envelope and just like you do down out at Boyson and see how that works. But I don't want to waste everybody's time either. If people are on board and if they're not, then we move on and we're done with it. That's what I'd rather do. I'd rather just see if, everybody that would like to have like an honor box type of fee, they raise their hands. Everybody that wants volunteer or, a volunteer type situation, we do that and then we can move on. We don't waste any more time talking about this. That's what I would do. I mean, that's
Not a bad idea, Dan.
I mean, I appreciate the intent to get the ball rolling with that. I think for me, one of my concerns are without knowing better, how do we address things like avoiding vandalism? I mean, part of like, we don't have toilet seats in the toilets because those get vandalized, how are we going to manage a cash box? As opposed to some kind of credit card system, which takes more investment in that. And then even knowing if this is legal and if it is legal or not, or questionable, since City Park is currently multiple sections of city property, can we take one smaller part? And that's the only place where camping for fees are allowed, again, depending on how it would be structured for Department of Revenue and whatnot. So the majority of City Park would remain tax-free. So I love the idea of getting the ball rolling. To me, I think getting the ball rolling at this point includes better signage about the option to pay, making the system easier to pay, and for citizen requests, having more clarity about where tents can go and where vehicles can be overnight. And I'd love to see where that gets us. And then over the winter time, get more information for the specifics of that and see what kinds of enhancements we can make to it and be ready for next summer full force.
Mayor, no, I would just suggest the first thing we need to do is find out if it's legal. That's find out if it's legal, and then let's carry on this conversation down and say, okay, how many want a mandatory fee, and let's put up a volunteer drop box for a season and see what kind of result we get, or let's do a volunteer donation type thing. But let's find out if it's legal first, and then we can go down that road.
Sounds good.
Council agree? Make sure the attorney checks it out, and gets back with us. And we can move forward with it. Okay. All right, let's move on to another big topic. Discussion concerning proposed resolution 1297 authorizing submission of an application to State Loan and Investment Board for loans through the state revolving fund on behalf of the governing body of the city of Lander. Is that, sorry.
This is just one of the requirements for the loan package that we're putting together for SLIB. I did put in your Dropbox late a spreadsheet that shows the projects by year. By doing the projects as the 45 million, we get the 0.25 interest rate, which would be, if we did them separately, all separately, and applied for separate grants every time, that would be a $7.5 million savings in interest alone, just from doing it this way as a larger package. We would still go after grants and that. So if we did come across other monies, we don't have to take all the money, but at least we're asking for more so that we have enough if the projects go for more, but we are still able to go after other grant monies to put towards these projects if it does become available. But realize that when we're doing all this, part of the package is also submitting our rate structure. This is going with what the water master plan, at the 7% increase, till 2032. And then Lance is already looking into doing the sewer study rate. So right now that would also leave the sewer rate at the 7% a year. until we get a study done on it that would tell us a different direction. They were able to add a sewer vac truck, which our sewer vac truck right now is a 2003. They can't get parts for it anymore. We were able to add that. That cost of that is $550,000. They'll only give us $20,000 to the one that we have right now. So, and also they added that we could get street sweepers because it's part of cleaning up the stormwater system. So like in years 6/30/24, we would have purchased those assets. We would get debt forgiveness as long as there's forgiveness available each year when we finish a project, and then that would start a new loan. That's all I have. If Lance has something else.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring up, this is potential for loan forgiveness. And the reason we're phasing these projects is it's again for management and to have available contractors and get good bids on these projects. Just a matter of perspective, I heard today that Riverton put out their meter project, which we have one of those in this plan. And they had one bidder that bid the job, and they bidded it $7 million to swap out meters on 4,000 houses. And so that is the market that we're looking at right now. We're trying to, bring in people who are willing to look at our projects in a way that they're appealing, give us good prices on those, figure out how we can manage these and fund projects moving forward. If you try to fund projects without enough capital, you have to raise revenue, which means that our water and sewer fees that we're proposing now, instead of 7% in small increments, you've got to do something big up front, generate a lot of capital, and then start paying for your project. And then you're trying to keep up with inflation. So our feeling as staff is that inflation is moving faster. If we can get low than we'd like, if we can get low interest loans right now, develop the revenues and pay it back at this 0.25%, that Lander's going to end up money ahead in the long run. So that's our analysis on it, and why we're proposing a big job for all of these. There's still a $15 million ARPA amount of funding out there, and our projects are still in that queue, but we don't have high hopes that somebody's going to come in and give us another big project like we got Lincoln Street. So if we're going to get Fifth Street done, if we're going to get Buena Vista done, if we're going to get Cascade done, if we're going to start making the improvements to take the trash out of the sewer lagoons, this is that plan to do this. And so that's what we're proposing at this point in time, and why we're thinking this would be a good thing for the community to get a lot of work done and use the revenue and opportunities that are out there to try to do it at the lowest rates possible and get some forgiveness.
The other thing I want to point out is, so right now we have we have 6 SLIB loans out right now, which is about $5.3 million that we owe on them. Well, at the end of August, they have the comment period for SLIB for changing these rules to lower the interest rates. They'll let us refinance these interest from 2.5 to the 1.5 interest, and that alone will be a savings of about $412,000, which will help also our cash flow for if we keep with the same payments that we're paying right now at the 2.5% interest, keep with the same payments. Then when we cycle these and finish these, that will free up that cash flow so we can start our next bulk of projects and go after as long as we borrow more than 15 million, you get the 0.25 interest rate, and we get the debt forgiveness. So I think it might be nice if we draft a letter to send to SLIB, because they're taking comments, to say how much money that the city of Lander would save for these much favorable interest rates that they're wanting to change and offer.
Missy?
I wholeheartedly agree to a letter for that amount of savings. That seems very prudent to do. Lance, you made the comment about Riverton had one bid at 7 million. Did I hear that right?
You did, and their budget on that was a max of 3.8 is
Right.
what they were anticipating, I think, for that
Right.
project.
So I look at that and think, so you're anticipating 1.8 for Lander. I mean, I know we have fewer taps than Riverton has, but it gives me pause to think, are we even in the neighborhood for that particular project of our anticipated costs,
That's what
let alone all the other things?
That's what Shari was gonna get from me tomorrow. Are we underestimating some of these jobs based on the numbers that we received from? That number came from a supplier working with people who come in and then coordinate those services to install meters, and that number may be significantly lower than we expect, low in our estimation versus what it actually is in remote Wyoming. I don't think Riverton's going to award that project. They'll have to figure something else out. But that's why it's important to evaluate every project, figure out how we can be
Yeah.
frugal in doing
Yeah.
that, and then also make sure our specifications are simple and easy and we're not creating issues and keep our bids low.
Yeah.
So
Is there any opportunity to somehow do that sequentially with Riverton so that we might entice someone to come and be in Fremont County for a longer time and get us a little bit better rate for that?
well, in the past, we've done it with part-time staff, and we might have to go back to a model of hiring people individually to coordinate the meter installs and do that, paying a person per hour rather than hiring some of this out for contractors. So it creates us looking back at these projects, how are we going to afford to do all of them, even with $45 million, so that we don't go over budget and get as much done as we can.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that. And again, I'm reminded, I know it's really hard for residents to wrap their heads around, and I'm sure all of us have heard concerns voiced about increasing the water rate. And again, as a educational piece for the community, the 7% will net us about $140,000. And then you look at the price tags of these, so the Fifth Street is 6.9 million. There's that kind of going back to what Councilman Hahn said about, in terms of parks and other things, nothing's for free. And we've, everything costs a lot of money and more money with every day. And we've got to take care of our infrastructure. And it's just frightening to look at the price tags for these things. So I appreciate the look at y'all are doing for trying to find us the biggest bang for our buck and the lowest interest rates. And again, anything we can do for our existing SLIB loans, I think we should do it and lower that. That's a big savings to the citizens of Lander and helps us keep our rate increases at as low as they can be right now.
I want to point out too, that the water meters, we're going to try to go after as a green project. Pine Bluffs was able to do it. A green project means we would get 0% interest on it. So Lance is going to write the narrative for it to add to the grant to try to go after this as a green project so that we don't have to pay interest on that part of it.
And then also the model of having projects every year for so many years is very appealing for contractors to come to Lander. So if they're not currently here and they are interested in being here, there's contractors we've worked with that we've talked to in the past who would be like, yeah, that would be great. If we had guaranteed business, we might set up shop or be able to bid and be competitive in that area. So it's not just one project that they're trying to mob here for. It's a series of projects they know that could be guaranteed work, which would hopefully encourage lower prices and a better system.
Right, especially given our water master plan, we're looking at improvements, not just through the FY 28, but well beyond that, given what's going on. So if that, anything we can do to entice quality work at the best prices possible, we're all in for that.
So the meeting on the 8th, there will be a public hearing about this and then the resolution. And that we'll submit the application that it's due the 9th. It goes before the SLIB board in December for final approval.
Questions, Councilman Stibble? Anybody else have questions? Okay. Move forward, I guess, huh? Yeah. Okay. Next on the discussion item, discussion concerning proposed resolution 1298, amending salary structure to reflect the cost of living increases for the previous improved parks maintenance foreman position. Shari or Michelle?
So this resolution would update our salary structure, our being the city of Lander salary structure, to reflect the cost of living increase that the council generously approved this year, so that our minimum and maximum scales stay in line with our employees and where they're making. So if our highest is $10 and at some point you never change that salary structure, for example, but over time, 3% and 5% and COLAs of that nature have come along. So someone's then outside the range potentially. So this keeps those types of issues in line. And also when we make offers to new employees that we hope to bring on board, that keeps those in line as well. So our minimum salaries kind of track what employees are making. We did the same thing last year and we updated it. The second part to that is when I was looking at this and looking at our employees and things of that nature, I noticed that in 2021, prior to my employment, there was an approval of a salary structure and a number of job descriptions at that time. And inadvertently, the park maintenance foreman was left off of that schedule, was just never placed on it. We have the description, it was approved, it says it is, grade 7, but he wasn't, that position, not necessarily he, but that position was not listed on the matrix. So I added that in. And it's a grade 7, and we currently have an employee in that position, so.
Just so I can understand this. So we're basically raising the salary cap, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Does that mean that by agreeing with this, that the administration can automatically give raises?
No.
No.
Council always, you're in charge of the budget, so you're the ones who approve the raises. that
Okay,
come through.
my other question is, if you raise the cap and you are hiring somebody new, does that mean you can go above I assume that this cap is, our cap now is what, the mid-range? And we're jumping into the maximum over here. This is the new cap for say the 14.
Okay.
14, the cap right now is 121. And the new cap will be 148.
So on 14, the minimum is 95,354. The mid-range, the middle of that salary grade would be the 121, and then the highest amount would be 148.
Okay, what is it now?
Oh. It is
I'm trying to
8
figure out what it is right now and figure out like if the mid-range is our high now. And if the new cap is, we're bumping it, 20 some thousand.
I can run and get those figures for you, but I can tell you how this was created was just to add 8.7% to all the figures that were already there existing, because
So
8.7
we're
was-
just taking what everything was, since I'm not looking,
Yeah.
I'm not.
And I
so-
apologize, I should have put that in the packet for you.
Okay, so well, that explains everything.
We're
So-
just adjusting all the numbers by 8.7 to reflect the
So
8.7 that all.
what the raise is.
Yeah,
Correct.
just
Okay, yeah.
just the starting wage and the any wage. How that range came up is, remember, we used to be on a wage and step scale. It was 13 steps. Well, that was very limited for hiring and that, because they were 3% between each one, where we just changed it so that it's just a range. That mid number just happens to be the number that's right in the middle between the highest and the lowest. So all we're ever adjusting each time is the beginning and the ending by whatever the raises are for that year,
Okay,
or the
Okay.
cost of living, excuse me, that is for that year.
okay, thank you.
Questions? Go ahead, Councilman Hahn.
So yeah, just looking at this, I mean, this is kind of sad to me considering the average wage in Lander, and this was in 2022. 45,000 for a single person is the average. For a household, 75,533. And then, we got like the lowest one here is above the average wage of anybody, working a normal job in Lander. And then we keep getting asks and wants and everything, but 8% to somebody who's making 41,000 compared to 8% to somebody who's making 95,000, that's a big difference. So the guy on the bottom of the heap is, I think we're like top end heavy, getting paid pretty damn high in the top end, and then your guys out doing the work are skating.
Well, it's all based on the job description and the job qualifications that determine where you're put at on the job scale. So when you're looking at the higher job earners, most of them all have college degrees or certifications. Our water operators, I can tell you, we don't have anybody on our payroll that's making the minimum on 41,000 a year. The average household income is $65,014. So that's usually two people in a household. So I would honestly say that the average of our employees are making is about $50,000 a year.
Okay, so this is not to pick on you, Lance, but I was looking on this thing and Public Works Director out of Riverton, 92,000. And, city engineer, 73,000.
Lance has both degrees.
He has both degrees, so he's doing
So
two
they have two
jobs.
people in Riverton and we have one person that does that job.
Gotcha.
So it's cheaper for Lander because we've put that into one position and Riverton has two people hired. Well, actually, I think they have more than one engineer hired.
Yeah. Cool. All I wanted to know.
The other slight difference is that some of those upper grades, they're not eligible for overtime. And so you'll see, and they deserve it. I'm not saying they don't, but sometimes our water treatment plant employees, they make overtime and they deserve it.
What's it, Missy?
Thank you, Mayor. So recapping, this is simply bringing the salary structure up to date with the COLA that we agreed upon in a previous council meeting. I think one thing for us to keep in mind for the future, when we talk about COLAs and or increases in wages, we certainly have the option to consider adjusting that at a certain point of our pay scale. But again, this is not creating something new. It's bringing our paperwork in alignment with what we'd already decided. So I think we're getting a little confused between starting something new as opposed to this is reiterating and encapsulating what we've already decided. I think some of the concerns we have, we should place mark that in our heads and bring that next year should we have the conversation about raises, cost of living adjustments, et cetera. All valid points.
Questions? More? I just hope you don't bear with me. I'd like to back up just a minute. Adam, while you're doing your research on camping fees and seeing if it's legal, Rachel, could you check with Tara Berg at the Commissioner's Chamber down there and assessor and seeing what that'll do to us tax wise?
Sure, I'll reach out to Tara. I'll be happy to do that.
Okay, I sure appreciate that. That's gonna give us a good balance of where we can do, what we can't do. So, you ready? Let's go home.